Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out on this nice, not rainy night, depending on when you came. But I'm Dan Olson. I'm the vice president here. I'd like to, welcome you to Roosevelt Hall, and just to remind you that you are experiencing something few people really get to experience. This is a world premiere, right? One group last night, right? Check off your bucket list. So, and I would also like to just thank a few of our sponsors, and most of them are listed in your programs there, and make sure you thank them for their sponsorship, both individuals and the businesses and so forth. And also just a special shout out to the Grant County Historical Society, who really partnered with us and they were involved from the beginning of this project, which is, it's a local project, and you will see evidence of the real history of our area tonight, and just obviously not every detail, but much of this is based on things that you could go to the Historical Society and look up and find more about afterwards. And hope you would do that. And I think we are ready to bring you General Barrett's Last Battle.
Georgiana, I'm glad we finally have some time alone together, now that the funeral's over. These are letters your father wrote to me when we were courting. I haven't read them to you yet or shared them with you, because I thought you were too young, and you still are only 14. But your father has died. My father, your grandfather, our namesake, dead too, when I was young, much younger than you. I never got to know my father, except through stories my mother, your grandmother, would tell.
You've told me some of those stories. He sounded like a brave man.
Yes, so I was told. But you have known your father firsthand.
Sometimes the other kids would tease me about him. Their parents are your age, but was their grandparents' age. They said he wasn't my real father. Sometimes I almost believed them.
I know you two had your conflicts and misunderstandings. He was much older than I, but he was your father and my husband, and in his heart, he loved us both dearly. I think it's time for you to know that and understand him better. I want to reveal a side of him that he didn't reveal very often, except to me.
I would like that, Mother.
This is a letter he wrote to me on my 23rd birthday. Sauk Center, Minnesota, May 11th, 1879. Dear Georgie, and now you are 23. To be that age again. You always remembered my birthday. It was just a month before our wedding. And now you are 23. Let me congratulate you. I was in such a hurry when I wrote on the 9th that I forgot to tell you how glad I was that you were born and that you are just 23 years old. You are in your 24th year now, and I am in my 44th. Just the right age for each other, because the 20 years between us is all abridged over by our enthusiastic and intensely perfect love.
And intensely perfect love. I have prided myself on being at home everywhere, anywhere in the wide world. That was before I knew you. Now only when I am with you am I at home. Everywhere else there is something wrong, something unsatisfactory. But your magnificent presence means everything has changed. The light of your eyes is to me more than sunlight. You are more to me than all the world. It is love, perfect compatibility, that's something made by the Creator for man and woman's greatest good. But did you ever try to fathom the human heart? Did you ever try to analyze a human soul? Material and spiritual, blood and nerves and wonderful passion, as blind as love is and abstract, power and cruelty, grief and exultant minds over moods and feelings, clouds and shadows, cruelty and poverty, and 1,000 shades of thought and feelings, all struggling for mastery.
I think that struggle went on him all his life. Now, when two persons filled with each other then love each other intensely, and love is to each the utmost passion, why then they are for each other while 23 and 43? It is love which has united them, not years or oaths or professions of attachment. It is love which makes us one. Georgie, I have always thought and always tried to tell myself of my own love and yours. We shall be very happy if we really love, but the world is not wide enough to hold our misery should we be mistaken. But I know that I love my Georgie, and I know that she loves me ever as I love her. I know that. Her great and generous heart is love, and love is the heart of her every thought. And this queenly woman will soon be my wife. I am impatient for the day to come. No shadows anymore. Kiss me, kiss me, kiss me. Theo. Oh, Theo. I wish I could. Just one more time.
I can't imagine my father saying things like that. He just seemed so gruff so often.
He could be that, but he was so much more. If only the accident hadn't happened, he still could have been so much more.
Careful, don't jostle him.
Oh, my dear Theo.
Come on, boys, gently. We must get the general to his bed. The doctor should be here shortly.
My horse. My back. Don't let him mosquito. Georgie.
Theo, my dear, you've been hurt. The doctor will be here soon. You must not move and be calm. He'll be here soon. He must be. You men out of here.
What happened to the general?
Did you see it?
No, I had my back to him. I was seeing hay.
I saw it. He was coming full tilt and his horse dipped into a badger hole. I heard its leg snap and down it went. The general flew off and landed on his back and rolled a few times.
Poor horse.
I was watching him through the spyglass in the tower. Then he was gone. I searched for him through the glass, and he was on the ground. He was a misshapen lump of clothes.
Your man caught me just as I was leaving Kneemackles. On my way back to Herman. Mrs. Kneemackles feeling very unwell right now. What's this? The general has had an accident?
Yes. Theo was out ready to check on his men in the fields when his horse went down and he was thrown off. I'm very, very seriously hurt.
What, Georgie? You've been hurt?
No, Theo, I'm fine. You've had an accident.
Accident? No accident.
General, can you hear me? What pain are you feeling?
Dr. Olson, is that you? Why are you here, dear man? Did you come for lunch? What time is it?
No, General, you've had an accident. I've come to see how serious your injuries are. Now, what pain are you feeling?
Come to think of it, I have a really raging headache in my arm and my ribs.
General, can you feel this?
No. What are you doing?
What about that?
No. What are you doing?
General, if you could excuse us for a moment.
Georgie, what's happening?
There's nothing more you can do here. Doctor, what is it? How badly is he hurt?
Well, I believe he has some broken ribs and certainly a broken arm and a concussion. There might also be some internal injuries as well. I fear that the fall may have paralyzed him from the waist down. Now, sometimes that is due to bruising and people regain the use of their legs, but right now it is too soon to tell. Your men bringing him in so rough certainly didn't help anything, but they didn't know any better. I'll try to assess his injuries and see how serious they are in the meantime. All this stuff is out of my knowledge. I'll have to telegraph a surgeon colleague of mine when I get to Herman. If he's free, he'll be here on tomorrow's train. In the meantime, it is important to keep him cool and comfortable in these warm months.
Oh, my poor Theo.
Well, Dr. Anderson, what is your diagnosis? What is the prognosis?
It was not good, General. It's only been a day since your accident, but the fall seems to have broken your back. You probably will never walk again. I'm sorry. We might have to take you to St. Paul for some surgery as well.
No. I am not leaving my house. You say never walk again?
No, it is very unlikely. I am sorry.
Not as sorry as I am. They had to shoot my poor horse, General Grant, just for a broken leg. Perhaps they should turn the gun on me as well.
Theo, don't talk that way.
Georgie, I would not have it this way if only for your sake. But how am I to be a father or a provider if I'm confined to this bed or to some rolling chair being wheeled about like a sack of potatoes? No, there are many things I still wish to accomplish.
And you still will. Think of what you can do, not what you can't. General, you're a commander of men. You can still run your ranch without having to perform any physical tasks.
Well, perhaps you're right. I have overcome obstacles in my past, like that cursed malaria that left me an invalid as a child too many times.
That's the spirit, General.
Perhaps I could write my memoirs once I'm out of this sling. I've always wanted to do that.
Yes, Theo, and I could help you.
Georgie, I hate to have you see me like this. These are my darkest hours yet.
As always, I will be by your side when you need me and leave you to your own thoughts when you want to be left alone.
Georgie, I don't deserve someone like you.
As always, we'll face this together.
Astrid?
Yeah, General.
What is that boy doing here? Why was he spying on me? Why isn't he in class with the others?
He must have snuck in while I wasn't watching. I think it's their lunchtime. I will take him back outside.
No, let him stay if he likes. I'm in a mood to talk today. Take care he doesn't bring any mosquitoes.
Sit.
You may go now, Astrid.
I will be right outside in the library, General.
Yes, I know. The next time you come back, please bring a book. Another one of Shakespeare's plays.
Yeah, of course.
You're a playmate of my daughter's, aren't you? What is your name?
Fritz Spear, sir.
Fritz. And how old are you?
11, sir.
11. Not quite old enough to be out working with in the fields with the men yet. I remember when I was your age. I was a born and bred Yankee. I lived in New York then. I had aspirations to be a teacher or maybe go into politics. What aspirations do you have, lad?
Be a farmer, sir. Just like my papa.
Yes, I know your father. He rents a parcel of land for me, and from what I can tell, he has done well for his family. Farming is a noble profession. You have a large family, don't you?
Yes, sir. 8 of us now from the mom's pregnant.
Catholics, I assume?
No, sir. Lutheran's.
Oh, well, they're both fine Christian religions. I don't agree with everything that the Catholics believe, especially that Pope thing. But I don't agree with everything that the Protestants believe either. There are so damn many of them, and each one thinks theirs is the one true faith. Excuse my language.
That's okay. My boss says damn all the time.
Oh, yes, I'm sure he does. Well, I do have some admiration for those Methodists, though. They seem to have a good grasp of both the spiritual and the mundane. But I don't suspect you were spying on me to listen to me pontificate about popes and such. You saw me take my tumble a couple of days ago, didn't you?
Yes, sir. My pals and me were eating our lunch outside and we were watching him drive your horse, General Grant. I love horses. After I saw General Grant go down, I heard a hand yelling, "We need a blanket!" So I grabbed the blanket we were eating our lunch on and ran up to him. I'm a fast runner.
Well, yes, I'm sure you are. You are certainly much healthier than I was at your age. I wanted to thank you for that. I know I'd give you extra chickens for playing with my daughter, and tonight you will take another 5 chickens with you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, don't call me sir. It gets tiring for us both, and you're not in the army. Perhaps I don't need someone to listen to my stories as much as I need someone to retell them. Or, when do you have to be back to your classroom?
The teacher will ring the bell in maybe 10 or 15 minutes. We're learning about the War of the Rebellion.
Well, it looks like I've rescued you just in time. I can tell you far more about the war than you can learn in your classroom or from books. You can skip your class if you'd like. I'll tell your teacher it's okay, and since she works for me, there's not much she can do to punish you for missing her classes.
Wow, thanks. And the extra chickens besides. This is my lucky day.
Yes, I suppose it is. Oh, and I hope you have so many more ahead of you, Fritz. You are in the spring of your life, and I believe that a man's life is like the seasons. And if he lives long enough, he will live through spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Well, I am in my autumn now. And it has now become painfully clear that I may not live to see my own winter. But after 20 years of living on this frigid, wind-blown prairie, I suppose that's not all so bad, is it?
Yes, it does get damn cold out here.
Oh. Well, you are quite the confident young man, and much more so than I was at your age. Well, I found that talking about my thoughts helps me overcome the blues, and Fritz, I am feeling very blue right now. Do you know what the blues are?
It's when you get sad, isn't it?
Yes, but it's more than just sad. Oh, it's like when you get these destructive, repetitive thoughts that get stuck in your head and then they sit and fester and rot. Oh, your brain turns like a lump of coal, and I feel like a lump of coal that's sinking deeper and deeper into the Great Lake, with the pressure getting greater and greater the deeper I go.
That sounds scary. How do you get out of it?
Well, Fritz, the one thing that keeps me going is the knowledge that when a lump of coal is under enough pressure for enough time, it turns into a diamond. Oh, and my lovely Georgie has discovered that diamond, and she's reached down from heaven and plucked it right out of the lake.
You really love Mrs. Barrett, don't you?
Yes, I do. Very much.
How did you meet her?
Well, I'm glad you asked. What a pleasant memory. I was just thinking about that the last day or two.
Did you hear about the barristers? I've heard their daughter isn't away at boarding school. She's in an unwed mother's home.
Oh my, she always was the wild child. Who is the father?
No one really knows. But I did hear a rumor it's an English sailor that was here for just a couple of weeks and then sailed back home again. He might not even know he's a father. Oh, and did you hear that a real-life general is coming to our little resort town? He might even come to our little soiree this evening.
A general? A war hero here in Cape May? Who is he?
General Theodore Harvey Barrett. I heard that he was a general in the Texas campaign just as the war was ending. He led a group of colored troops against the rebels.
Why, that sounds fascinating. Those young Negro men didn't even have to volunteer. They must have been very brave. And to have this General Barrett to lead him, he must have been a competent man of high principle.
You McKees have colored servants, don't you, Georgia? Apparently you find them brave enough to clean your house and cook your meals.
Don't be snide, Margaret. Yes, we do. My stepfather employs them and treats them with great respect. They are excellent employees and very loyal. Nonetheless, I would like to meet this general.
You may very well get your chance, Georgia. I believe that's he coming in the door now.
I will have a Manhattan, please.
Yes, sir.
And I thought generals drink whiskey straight.
Good evening, ladies. You appear to be lacking a man's company. Perhaps I may remedy that.
You must be General Barrett, the famous war hero.
I performed my duties to the best of my abilities, as we all did then, madam. Any man who fights for a noble cause is a hero as far as I am concerned. The Union gave those rebels the thrashing they deserved.
And what part did you play, General?
Well, Miss...
Georgia, sir. Georgia McKee.
Well, Miss Georgia, that is a beautiful name. If you'll allow me to get a drink for you, we can go over to the bench there and look at the ocean as I tell you some of my tales. And there is no need to call me General. You may call me Theodore, or Theo, if you please.
Why, thank you, Theo. I'll have what you're having.
A Manhattan it is.
Well, Georgia, there's your war hero. What do you think?
I find him quite attractive, and even though I'm sure I've never seen him before, he somehow reminds me of someone.
Well, you'll certainly remember him for a long time, especially if he spills his drink on you.
Yes.
Oh, Margaret.
Even if he doesn't.
Well, madam, shall we go take in the ocean and chat? It is a beautiful evening, is it not?
Yes, a very beautiful evening.
You asked me about my part in the war. It was not as great as I had hoped. I suffered some health setbacks that laid me low when I should have been in the midst of battle, but I did lead a regiment of troops in far southern Texas near the Rio Grande right at the end of the war. It was called the Battle of Palmito Ranch. Actually, it was the last battle of the war.
Really? I haven't heard of that battle. Tell me about it.
It was in May of 1865. The Union officers in the South knew of Lee's surrender at Appomattox the month before, and so did the Rebs. At least their commanders did. But all he did was surrender his own army of Northern Virginia. There were skirmishes, yet for a few months, but the rebels knew they were beat. At least most of them did. I commanded the 62nd Colored Regiment out of Missouri, and we were there to see that the rebels didn't create any mischief, like selling cotton to the French devils who were just across the Rio Grande, meddling in Mexican affairs.
Regiment of Negro men. How did they account for themselves?
Very well indeed.
General, tell me what started the battle.
There was sentiment among my men that the rebels were up to something. and I shared that sentiment. Suffice it to say that in war, if men are itching for battle, they will find a way to start one. Madam, would you care to dance?
Why, yes, I would.
Well, Miss Georgia, it did not go as I had hoped. The fighting went back and forth. We were making headway when the rebels came back with reinforcements that included cavalry and artillery, of which we had neither. We were outgunned and forced to retreat. We made it back not far from where we had started. We held them off until they tired, and that was that. There was no more fighting.
I'm sure you accounted for yourself very well.
Under the circumstances, I suppose I did. I was a colonel at the time, and after the war was over, I was promoted to brigadier general. But enough of this war talk. Women should not hear of this savagery that men inflict on each other, especially young women. What of you? Tell me about yourself.
Well, I know a little Army life myself. I was born in Fort Smith, Arkansas, where my father, George Brubaker, was a soldier. That was the territory that the Cherokee passed through before they were taken into Indian territory. I was young, only 2 or so when I contracted scarlet fever. I vaguely remember being sick, but I recovered. My father, however, caught it from me. They tell me he lingered for nearly 2 weeks before he died. My mother then had no means of supporting herself, but she had a cousin who lived in Kansas, so we moved to Leavenworth, where she did some sewing and housekeeping. This was just before the war. It was there that she met my stepfather, a merchant, Henry McKee. They were soon married, and he adopted me and my sister Lily. It was her way out of poverty, I suppose.
Fort Smith, I am familiar with it. I did much of the official surveying of Indian territory after the war, and I stopped there a couple of times for provisions. I'm sorry to hear you lost your father at such a young age. A child, whether a girl or boy, needs a father to provide for them and bring some discipline and stability to their lives.
I still dream of him from time to time, although his face is never clear. In any event, my mother's parents, my grandmother and my grandfather, still lived near Fort Smith, but shortly after the war ended, my grandfather passed away, so my mother convinced Henry to move us down there so she could take care of my grandmother. He started a business selling dry goods and provisions to the soldiers' families.
So, were you well provided for?
In a manner of speaking. My mother sewed us the clothes out of the fabric that no one else wanted, and while we never wanted for food, the food we did have was usually what was left unsold. My sister and I didn't know that lettuce was supposed to be eaten green until we moved to Washington.
Poor girl. How old were you?
I was 10 at the time. One happy memory I do have is when I learned how to ride horses. I love horses. They are strong and loyal and noble.
So you ride? I love horses as well, and for the same reasons in addition to being useful.
Well, after my grandmother passed away, there was no reason for us to stay in Fort Smith anymore. My stepfather had higher aspirations than to be a poor merchant in a small wilderness town, so we moved to Washington, the capital, where he studied and became a lawyer. A successful one, I might add. And even though the town is full of lawyers, or perhaps because of it, we haven't wanted for anything since.
And now you eat green lettuce and live in Cape May?
Not year-round. My family has a small summer cottage here on the beach. But I have talked enough about myself. What about you? What did you do after the war?
Well, I considered remaining in the Army. There were still battles with Indians going on in the West, but I had no quarrel with Indians, especially after I fought them in Minnesota during the Sioux Uprising.
So you were in battle there too? That's about as far away from Texas as you can get.
Yes, and I much prefer Minnesota to Texas. And I much preferred fighting against white rebels than against red warriors who wanted little more than to be left alone and be allowed to live on their own land and provide for themselves without the help of slaves.
I remember some of the Cherokee who passed through Fort Smith. They were a sad-looking lot.
Yes, they were defeated and marched far from their lush homeland in the Carolinas to the arid plains of Oklahoma. Poor devils.
So you didn't stay in the Army?
No. I went back into the surveying trade I had been doing ever since I was a young man. Before the war broke, I surveyed in Ohio, Illinois, Nebraska, Minnesota, and other places.
How is it you became a surveyor?
It is a noble profession. To my mind, surveying brings knowledge of the world to the world. Without surveyors, there would be no maps, no knowledge of places we have never seen or how far away they are, no knowledge of what lies beyond the next hill or mountain, no railroads to take you there. Surveyors are the pioneers, the adventurers who have reduced the whole world into a globe you can hold in one hand. Surveyors also bring order to the world. Lines and grids and metes and bounds that men can use to say with certainty, this is mine and that is yours. That is a simple but profound agreement.
If only more people would abide by that outlook, there would be a lot less strife in the world.
Yes, I know, but I never once thought my work was in vain.
You do indeed make surveying seem like a noble profession.
If I didn't think that, I wouldn't have done it. I had wanted to become a teacher, another way to bring knowledge and order to the world, I suppose, but the malaria I contracted at a young age intervened. I was determined not to let that cursed disease control my life, so I took it head on. Rather than lie around reading books and feeling sorry for myself, I went into the wilderness, the outdoors, exploring the world beyond my backyard. I thought it would do me good.
Did it?
Yes. The activity helped my spirits. I still got sick from time to time, but I dwelt less on it. Anyway, during my surveying, I found western Minnesota to be the most promising for farming, which I had decided to give my hand a try at. The tall prairie grass was evidence of the richness of the soil, and the rains were timely, for the most part. The air was pure, and the water clean and plentiful. There were small lakes everywhere. And it wasn't in the cursed, pardon my language, sweltering south where diseases like malaria and scarlet fever abound.
I've never been to Minnesota. It sounds pleasant.
Well, the winters are less so. But anyway, the state and the railroad owed me money from the surveying work I had done for them, and I took my payment in cash and land, mostly land. I acquired about 16,000 acres in the west central portion along the railroad so that I would have an outlet for my grain. That's where I live now, and spend most of my time there developing my land.
So you live in the middle of nowhere.
Not so much the middle as the edge of nowhere. There are many small communities springing up along the railroad not far from where I live. Herman and Douglas Station, it was recently renamed Donnelly, are each only about 5 miles away. I think that Herman will become a bustling town one day if the men can find enough women to move there.
So So what brings you to Cape May, New Jersey?
Well, unless he's a hermit, a man can live on the edge of nowhere for so long at a time. I have many old Army friends and acquaintances back east, and I come here to visit them on occasion. Last week I was in Philadelphia, and a friend suggested I come here for the pleasant atmosphere and social life. There are many beautiful women here, he said.
Have you found this to be true?
Yes, more so than I had hoped.
And you, Theo, do you have any family?
My parents and sister live in Illinois now. My brother lives in New York still, where he and I grew up, and I go to visit him on occasion.
So you're not married?
No. I have traveled around so much I never settled down anywhere for any length of time. However, I am becoming settled now and considering it. In addition to companionship, I would like to have children. Georgia, I think you and I could share a conversation well into the evening. Would you like to go for a walk along the beach?
Why, yes, I would, Theo.
Well, those two certainly seem to have hit it off.
He does have a nice backside.
Margaret, he's old enough to be your father.
Well, he's not my father. Anyway, Georgia seems smitten. I haven't seen her act that way with any of the men around here her own age who are constantly after her to steal a kiss, or maybe more. He seems to treat her like a lady. That's something I wouldn't mind once in a while.
Me either. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
There they are, like two lovebirds. I hope a seagull doesn't fly over and get jealous and rain on their parade, if you know what I mean.
That was a very fond memory for both Georgie and me, I think.
So then what happened?
Well, as I suspected, we talked well into the evening. And then the next day, Georgie and I got together and we had lunch and talked more. And then the next day, when I had to leave, she saw me off. And I told her I would write to her many times, which I did, every day and sometimes twice a day. Wow. Well, I also went to Washington and visited her every chance after that. And we fell in love, and I proposed to her on one of my trips, and she accepted. Oh, Fritz, you will have a day like that someday where you fall in love and suddenly a whole new world opens up to you. Well, we got married, and I moved here and got my house built, and Georgie came here to help me finish it.
It's a grand house.
Yes, it is. It is more than sufficient for my needs, but nothing is too good for my Georgie. Oh, we have every modern convenience, even here on the edge of nowhere. But you know we recently had electricity installed, and that big windmill out there provides most of the power because it's so windy, right? Otherwise, we rely on the generators.
Yes, it does get damn windy out here.
Oh. Fritz, did you know I lived in a tent before I built this house?
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, not always, especially when it was damn windy and damn cold. Oh, one time the wind was so strong, it ripped my tent apart with me inside of it.
That doesn't sound like fun.
No, it wasn't. But I did spend many pleasant hours in that tent, especially in the springtime, when I could look out over my fields and think of what a lucky man I was, and of course write letters to Georgie.
Dear Georgia, the prairie fires have been burning ever since my return a month ago. It is interesting how long it takes to consume the vegetation of a single year. And when one reflects that for countless ages these fires have been destroying the remnants of old vegetation, it also accounts for the germination of the new. This afternoon has been
lovely. Just the day to ride over the prairie, thinking and enjoying the newborn spring. The early leaves are beginning to open out. I sent you a specimen. The prairies are quite green. When the wind is not furious, it is as pleasant here as anywhere in the world at this
season of the year. But when the winds blow, just about as unpleasant as it can be. Yesterday it was horrific, today beatific. If that is not a correct word, you may call the weather just beautiful, elegant, delectable, enjoyable, or that it is just lovely. Even though a farm is practical, it can be much greater than that. If you do not find it what you expect, you will have to have me make it right. See it all in my eyes.
Or I'll wait for you to come and see how much a man can learn all these skills and how they all create the change, and you will see how great the change is. On the whole, I think it best for us to both let things run on about as they are now, until you come. Oh, Theo, I'm counting the days.
I have spent many hours in tents during the course of my life, both when I was in surveying and when I was in the Army. Fritz, was your father ever a soldier?
I think he was in Germany before he and my ma came here. He don't talk about it much.
Yes, I suppose he has his reasons. Does he ever encourage you to become a soldier?
No, he says he needs too much help on the farm for his kids to be running off to the Army. There's only 3 of us boys.
So far.
Yeah, so far.
Well, you won't get any encouragement from me either. I did learn some discipline in the Army, but I was fairly well disciplined before that. You do learn to work with other men and accomplish a similar goal, and if you account for yourself well enough, you learn to become a leader of men.
If you don't get killed.
Yes, if you don't get killed.
What was it like for you in the Army?
Well, I was an officer, but I didn't engage in much combat firsthand. My health was often so poor that I was mostly behind the scenes and behind the lines. But I did get to lead men into battle just as the war was coming to an end.
What battle was that?
It was called the Battle of Palmito Ranch.
My teacher hasn't taught me about that one yet.
Yes, and it's likely she won't, unless I tell her to. Oh, there were far more important and significant battles than that one. And the generals in those battles got the credit and the recognition they deserved. And I got the credit and recognition that I deserved, which was practically none.
My teacher won't tell me about it. Can you? You said you would teach me about the War of the Rebellion.
Yes, I can. And your ears haven't heard my old war stories like pretty much everyone else around here has. Well, the Battle of Palmito Ranch took place in the far southern part of Texas, next to the Rio Grande River.
I've heard of the Rio Grande. It divides the United States and Mexico.
Yes, I see you pay attention in your geography classes. Well, as I was saying, the war was nearing its end, and now we know it was actually the last battle of the war. General Lee had just laid down his arms to General Grantham, and, as you know from your history classes, our great President Lincoln had been assassinated just a month before. I was a colonel then, and I was sent to Brownsville to enforce a blockade so that those rebels wouldn't send their cotton or any other goods across the border to the French or the Mexicans. My command was the 62nd U.S. Colored Infantry, and they were already there, and I went to join them.
The Union had slaves in the Army?
They were not slaves, my dear boy. They were free men, like you and me. And, unlike many of their white counterparts, they had all volunteered. Well, at any rate, when I arrived, I took over command from a man called Lieutenant Colonel David Branson.
Since you have just arrived here at Brazo Santiago, sir, let me inform you of my orders. We were to cross from this island to Port Isabel and move inland on a raid. However, I have news that the steamship we were to do so unfortunately came down with some mechanical problems.
We must march forward. We can march south to the mainland instead, to Boca Chica. It is a bit farther, but our men can wade through the mud or walk across the levee. We must carry out the mission. The rebels have supplies we can use and horses. My cavalry has no horses. What is a cavalry without horses?
Infantry, sir?
And they're the weaker for it. That is not how they were trained to fight.
Permission to speak freely, sir?
Yes, yes. Go ahead.
While General Wallace was not able to negotiate a surrender, he kind of came away with the impression the rebels knew that they hadn't been beat and wouldn't start anything. Our forces are few, maybe equal to the Rebs, maybe not. Either way, I suggest we stay here and wait things out, especially since that weather is so god-awful. I'm not a superstitious man, General, but that horrible weather and the steamship breaking down might be signs.
I am not a superstitious man either, and I do not believe in signs. I will not let fate make my decisions for me. Prepare your men to leave immediately.
Immediately, sir? But it will be night soon.
Yes, immediately. All the better to catch them by surprise. That is how General Grant would do it. I will join you later after you have established yourself on the mainland. Send a runner back periodically to let me know of your situation.
Yes, sir.
Fate. Fate. My life has been controlled by fate. This time, I will beat it.
Colonel Barrett? Lieutenant Colonel Branson sent this message from the front lines.
Word from the front. From Branson. Colonel Barrett, the battle went well on the first day, but it's not going well at this time. At 2 a.m. on the 12th, after making a long circuitous march, we surrounded White's Ranch, where we expected to capture a rebel outpost of 65 men, horses, and cattle, but they had been gone for a day or two. We rested for a few hours. At 6 a.m., with Company H of the 62nd skirmishing ahead, my regiment, with Company H of the 62nd skirmishing ahead, we marched west toward Parmilo Ranch, where we expected to find rebel supplies and material. About 7 a.m., my advance units came into contact with a rebel band in small force. They did not seem surprised to see us. At the same time, soldiers of the Mexican army were marching up the bank of the Rio Grande directly across from us. I fear that they saw us advancing and gave the alarm to the rebels. Nevertheless, after some exchange of gunfire, they slowly gave way, and by midday, we had shoved them back toward Brownsville and were able to occupy Palmito Ranch. We captured 3 prisoners, 2 horses, and 4 beef cattle. We then retired to a hill near the ranch to rest and feed the men and animals. However, the respite did not last long. Captain Robinson soon gathered all of his command together, and they appeared to outnumber us. I made the decision to fall back to White's Ranch and were pursued by the rebels. The 62nd protected our rear, and we made it back to the ranch. At this point, the fighting has ceased, but I do not know what to expect next. We could use reinforcements. Your advice is appreciated. Branson. He makes no mention of casualties. We cannot let those men just sit there and retreat any further. I will send men from the 62nd, from the 34th Indiana, to give us the advantage. They should be there by daybreak tomorrow. I will accompany them, and then we will advance to Palmito Ranch again. By God, I will not let those rebels beat me back. They must pay for what they have done.
Forward, boys, forward! The 62nd is making headway. The Rebs are falling back!
Well, Branson, you took back Palmito Ranch without much resistance. but the rebels are still hanging around like a swarm of mosquitoes. I hear that their Colonel Ford is a hothead and does not take defeat easily, as no worthy leader should. We have destroyed what stores the rebels had and burned down the buildings that we're using for barracks. So there's nothing left for them here anymore. Yet, Ford's pride may compel him to try to take back this empty shell.
Do you still want to move toward Brownsville, sir?
Yes, we must consolidate our position here first and then organize for the march forward. I do not anticipate it will be easy. What time do you have?
Just after 3, sir.
Look, boys, look. The Rebs are coming back. And this time they're on horses.
And look, cannons. They're firing. And there's cannon fire coming from across the river. It's the Mexicans.
Damn that Ford. I knew it. And he has cavalry and artillery while we have neither. He sounds to be a mile or so away and is coming right for us. And there goes some cavalry to the north to outflank us. Branson, we must get ourselves out there and rally our men. We cannot become surrounded and trapped. I'll be damned if I will surrender to a rebel.
Bill, I'm hit. Help me. Get in a cart.
Get the surgeon.
We'll soon be outrun. Branson, deploy your men and prepare to withdraw.
Yes! The Indiana boys have broken their line. They're running away from the Rebs. Some of them have jumped into the river. We don't have anyone covering our rear anymore.
Then get my 62nd out there. They will show those white boys how to fight.
Yes, sir. 62nd, muster yourselves around yonder tree. Where is your sergeant? Sergeant, get your boys organized. They must defend a retreat.
Yes, sir.
Well, Colonel, you wanted your battle, and now you have had it. We have many wounded. I don't know how many dead. There were a couple times when I thought Ford was going to overtake us. If he had, you likely would have had the honor of being the last Union officer taking battle in the war.
I'll excuse that impertinence, Lieutenant Colonel. I'll attribute it to battle fatigue and let it remain just between us.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
My 62nd accounted for themselves well, did they not? They repulsed every attempt Ford's cavalry made to break their line, and they took down some rebels in the process. Those circumstances would have tested the discipline of the best troops, and they prevailed. With their protection, our entire regiment fell back with precision, which is a credit to them as well.
I suggest we stay here. We're too well fortified and have too great an advantage. This very well could have been the last battle of the war.
Yes. Yes.
So that was the last battle of the rebellion?
Yes, it was. We later learned that Jefferson Davis, that so-called president of the Confederacy, had been captured just 2 days earlier. So that was indeed the last battle of the war. Although some rebels once in a while caused trouble and harassed Northerners, but that eventually died off too. But a few men, like Jesse James, made a career out of harassing Northerners well after the war.
Wow, Jesse James? I've heard of him. He was a famous robber.
Yes, and he met his match in Northfield. He and his gang were never quite the same after that. I suspect there's some poetic justice to that.
What kind of justice is that?
He got what was coming to him. I see that McKinley has been nominated as president again, and that he has chosen that man, Theodore Roosevelt from New York, to be his vice president. I like that man. With the name Theodore, he is obviously a man of character.
There is a Mr. Donnelly. here to see you, sir.
Donnelly? Oh, yes, lady. Do send him in. Then take care he doesn't bring mosquitoes with him.
Mr. Donnelly, you can go in, sir.
Theodore!
Ignatius, old man. How have you been? Your letters are so infrequent these days that you often slip my mind. What in heaven's name are you doing way out here?
I heard you had been seriously injured. I boarded the train from Hastings early this morning and I arrived just now. I see you haven't built a station yet, just that platform.
Yes, I'll get around to it someday, perhaps.
I heard what happened, Theo. How are you doing?
Well, 2 doctors have now told me I will likely never walk again.
I'm so sorry to hear that. You obviously have seen better days. But getting past that, are you on the mend?
Well, in a manner of speaking, I suppose I am mending. The doctor has been joking with me for the first time in a week. He says I am making more progress than he might expect, but sometimes my insides feel like they're on fire. The morphine helps with that, though. But what is that book you have?
Oh, I brought it for you to read. It is my treatise on how Francis Bacon was the true author of all the magnificent plays attributed to that second-rate actor, Shakespeare. Shakespeare had neither the education nor the wit to compose a coherent paragraph, much less the wonderful plays and beautiful sonnets that he supposedly wrote. As a matter of fact, I see you have been reading Othello.
Yes, I read it from time to time to remind me of the dangers of jealousy.
Aha, the green-eyed monster.
Yes, that's just one of his insightful phrases. I love Shakespeare, regardless of who he was.
Francis Bacon.
Oh, yes. Ignatius, you have such a fine intellect, but I have known so few men whose feet are rooted as firmly in the ground as yours, and yet whose heads soar so high above the clouds. You remind me of my son Theodore Jr., except his feet haven't taken root yet. I read your treatise on the lost continent of Atlantis, and I found it both interesting and speculative. Speaking of speculative ventures, I also read that you are nomination for the vice presidential candidate of the Populist Party. Congratulations. That came out of our National Farmers Alliance.
Yes, it is your legacy as well as mine. My time in politics has proved that great ideas can prevail with persistence. And that is why I'm running for national office again. We radical Republicans got rid of slavery once and for all, and we have much more to accomplish.
I think that President Lincoln and the Union Army had something to do with that as well. But I do know you had an influence on Lincoln.
Lincoln eventually came to see the light. You were a great admirer of his, weren't you?
Yes, and I still am. Oh, those damned rebels took him from us. What should we talk about, Ignatius? Teddy Roosevelt?
Teddy Roosevelt. He was a decent man.
He reminds me of Lincoln. Yes. Those Republicans in the party were once strong and bent on moving this country forward. But now, I guess we've become complacent, and now the rich make all the important decisions.
I could not agree more.
McKinley, I suppose, he is a passable president, but Roosevelt, he has that passion of the Republicans from 40 years ago, and apparently that which you still have. But we should lead that charge, like he led his Rough Riders up San Juan Hill. Yes. I do hope that Roosevelt will become president when McKinley's term is up, and then I hope he goes on to break up the power of the rich and those monopolies.
Yes, and that's why you should vote for me.
Always the politician, eh, Ignatius? Well, I'll consider it.
you do that. When I was traveling on the train between Donnelly and here, I was admiring your vast ranch, your farm. It is impressive. And you have a magnificent home and a wonderful library. You have done very well for yourself since our Farmers Alliance.
Yes, I guess I have. Well, between the mud and the droughts and the grasshoppers and the prairie fires, I suppose you could say farming has been good to me. I am indeed a farmer, though. I grow wheat. I raise 10,000 acres, Ignatius, of grain, food on what was once a totally unproductive prairie. Now, is that not practical philosophy?
Indeed it is. Theo, I can still remember clearly that speech you gave at the gathering of the National Farmers Alliance in Minneapolis. You were protesting the power of the railroads and how they were charging such exorbitant shipping fees that farmers such as you could not make a profit, much less a living, from their land and crops. You warned us of the dangers of too much power being concentrated in the hands of too few people. 1887, I believe it was.
Yes, that's when it was. Oh, I was in such fear of losing my farm for the stranglehold the railroad had over me. I am still very proud of that speech. In fact, I have a copy of it. Oh, it's over here on my bedside. Yes, that one. Thank you.
If I may impose.
Back of all this machinery
which permeates every part of the continent, nay, every core of the globe, sit a few men in numbers, constantly growing less, who can direct its operations. They are men of power. In their offices are keyboards, and from the keys, wires have been strung into all the habitable zones and under all the oceans. By a touch of the keys, they may influence the fortunes for good or evil of vast numbers of people on more continents than one. No men, however honest or capable they may be, ought to be entrusted by a free people with such tremendous power. It is liberty that is at stake. The fathers would have no kings, no house of lords. They said, in so many words, there shall be no nobility. In the hands of the great body of people, they left the political power. It is for this generation to complete the work.
Barrett for governor! Barrett for governor!
Magnificent! Just magnificent! Theo, you have put your finger on both the problem and the solution to how this country should fulfill its early populist promise. You were instrumental in getting the freedom of traffic bill adopted, which brought the railroads into tow. By God, you and I should have run on the alliance ticket for governor and lieutenant governor back then. We could have made the state of Minnesota the envy of all free-thinking men. With you as a Civil War hero on my ticket, we would have had the vote of every veteran and everyone who had a veteran in their family.
So I would have been your lieutenant governor?
Why, yes, of course. With my experience in politics, it would have been only natural for me to be at the head of the ticket. Besides, I'd already done my time as lieutenant governor. That was a thankless job. But you would have done well with it, Theo. You would have made something of it.
Really? Really?
Absolutely.
I do admit, and I'm sure I would have, but I admit that I may have had some political ambitions in my youth, and perhaps some glory in battle would have satisfied something within me, but as you can see, fate has had other plans.
Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Custer tried to steal that.
Yes, for whatever good it did him or anyone else. But as for you and me, Ignatius, I suspect the only legacies we will ever leave behind are a couple of small towns named after us. And, you know, my namesake town nearly burned to the ground a couple of months ago.
What happened, Theo?
Well, a fire ran through the main part of the town, and all that was left standing was the blacksmith shop.
A pity. Well, I'm sure if the townsfolk share their town namesake's fortitude, they will surely rebuild.
Perhaps.
How did they come to name the village after you?
Well, I was doing some surveying around there when the town was just forming. The railroad hadn't come through yet, so some railroad man couldn't claim it as his own creation. A couple of men that were on my surveying crew, Evan Bierke and Anton Hubred, they suggested that we call the town Barrett instead of Fridhem, which apparently they had been calling it. Well, my time holding out for a much larger namesake town had long passed, so I didn't object. In fact, I gave them an extra 2 days' wages for the idea.
Well, after they rebuild from the fire, you'd better hope they don't rename it Phoenix.
Oh, well, at least that would be an imaginative name. With all the towns springing up around here the last 30 years or so, very few have been imaginative in their naming. Morris, Hoffman, Herman, they were all named after railroad men. At least the people of Herman had the good sense to use the man's first name. Could you imagine living in a town called Trot? I've met that man. He's a strange little fellow.
Railroad men do seem to be an odd breed.
Yes, and Fergus Falls, Alexandria, and Breckenridge, those were 3 towns I personally platted. Well, they were named after a fur trader, a man from Maryland, and a pro-slavery Kentucky senator who you know later became a rebel war general. Elbow Lake, well, that was named after a lake that resembled an elbow. It's a good thing it didn't resemble a man's private parts.
I can only imagine. But think what a great tourist attraction it would have been.
Oh, yes. Well, as fate would have it, I now live in a county and also named after a surveyor, Isaac Stevens. There is no Barrett County, as you're aware. But had I built my house just a few rods further north, at least I would be living in a county named after a Civil War general hero and president, Ulysses Grant.
I have my thoughts on General Grant.
Yes, I know you do, and I've heard them. Chicago, though, is the only town around here that even acknowledges this was once Indian land. I understand that Chicago means halfway in the Dakota language. And Donnelly, that's the other one. 5 miles that way. Well, obviously you took that.
Yes, I did. As you know, I was a bonanza farmer like you. And I bought some land around what was called Douglas Station then. And also like you, I was tired of all the towns around here being named after railroad men. So I petitioned the legislature, where I still had some friends, to name the town Donna. And so it was. Now, I had hoped that the townsfolk might strive to become a utopian community, like my Nininger City, but when I passed by there in 1886 on my way to Herman to speak on behalf of the Farmers Alliance, I found that things really hadn't changed much. Certainly it wasn't a utopia.
That was when I was elected the president of the Alliance.
Yes, and your friend Hodgson was chosen as the Alliance's chief lecturer. Some of the Alliance Party even wanted you to run for governor.
No. I was a Republican then, and I am a Republican now. I was not about to stand far apart from the party of Lincoln. Oh, Ignatius, but that was years ago. As for now, I trust you will be staying here this evening, correct?
Well, I hoped you would invite me.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I was hoping that tomorrow I could take one of your carriages and drive into my namesake town. I'd like to see if some of the townsfolk still remember me. Maybe I could secure a few votes. Speaking of carriages, have you heard about that fellow Ford in Michigan who was trying to manufacture a horseless carriage? I think he calls it a quadricycle.
Yes, I believe he calls it an automobile now.
That's it, an automobile. I wish the man success. Can you imagine the independence and freedom of not having to take circuitous train routes? And in a self-propelled vehicle, no less.
We have those now, Ignatius. They're called horses.
Horses need care, and they tire if they have been ridden too long or carry a carriage too far. With an automobile, and sometimes on occasion, they will fall into badger holes. Now with an automobile, you can let it sit for days at a time, pay no attention to it whatsoever, and then when you needed it, you just pour a little gasoline in, and away you go.
Yes, yes, but there's the rub. If you wanted to travel any distance whatsoever, you'd have to carry around gallons of gasoline, and that is just impractical. No. I see no future for the automobile other than being an expensive toy for the rich.
And I suppose you think we won't also have flying machines someday.
Oh, my dear Ignatius, if and when we do, I also suspect we will see pigs flying around up there. My goodness, dear man, your head is so far up into the clouds, you don't need some flying machine to take you there.
No automated personal land travel? No automated air travel?
No.
Theodore, it is a brave new world we live in. I suppose next you'll be telling me that you believe the earth is flat.
Have you ever been on that road between Chicago and Herman?
I suppose you have a point.
Oh, Ignatius, you know that I consider myself a man of science, but it is a practical science, not that fantastical science of Jules Verne where men dig themselves to the center of the earth or they fly off to the moon.
Theodore, have you ever thought about taking that scope of yours to look at the moon or the clouds or even the birds in the air?
No. I am a surveyor, an explorer of this earth. It is not my purpose.
Speaking of explorers, do you believe that the Norsemen traveled here over 500 years ago to Minnesota?
Yes, I suppose you're speaking about that stone that the farmer by Kensington dug up a few years ago? Yeah. No, I think that is very, very, very unlikely. But I suppose you do believe in it, don't you?
I have no doubt. Ancient peoples were exploring the earth thousands of years ago.
The Atlanteans?
Yes, they were the first, and then they taught others to do it.
And what exactly do you think the Norsemen were doing here in Minnesota all those years ago?
Why, searching for a good cup of coffee, of course. I'm sorry, Theodore. I know that you think I'm impractical and a bit mystical at times, but you also can be mystical. You are a Mason, and I understand you have read the Quran.
There is nothing mystical about either one of those things. I have discovered that the more one learns about something, the less mystical it becomes. Even a so-called rune stone.
And yet, my so-called impractical ideas also include the notion that all men and women should be equal. Why women are still banned from voting in this country is beyond my comprehension.
You should meet my daughter. I think she'd like you.
A free thinker, is she?
Yes, even at her young age.
Good. Well, the Negroes of the South are no longer considered 3/5 of a person as they were in the Constitution, thanks in large part to my efforts. But even today, the black men of the South still have to pass all sorts of ridiculous tests, tests that even a white man could not pass, just to try to vote.
Yes, I agree with you about the black man. We white men stole him from his African home, and we brought him here and forced him to do our bidding. They till our fields, grow our crops, cook our food, and clean our homes. Well, at least those rebel Southerners made them do that. Our great president, Mr. Lincoln, knew that the only way this country would progress is if we remained one union where all men were free and equal under the law.
All men? Yes. Women are still waiting for their equality.
Well, I think most women are as free and equal as they would like to be.
Take care not to say that to the wrong woman.
Well, I do admit I choose my words more carefully around Herman's newspaper editor, who is a woman. But to get back to the point, I am a great defender of the black man, and just as much the red man. One time I saw Chief Joseph. He was a noble-looking, proud man, even in captivity and knowing he may never see his family and home again.
I can believe that. All the races have produced great leaders.
Yes. And they are often at their best when they are defending their home. Well, while we took the black man from his home, we took home away from the red man. And I have been a part of that. We sent them off to reservations to starve, but even that wasn't good enough. We had to attack them there as well. That so-called battle at Wounded Knee a few years ago is only the most recent example, but I sincerely hope it will be the last.
As do I.
Yes. And nearly as bad as that, as well as we hung those 38 Sioux prisoners at Mankato long after we had quelled that uprising, simply for trying to survive.
They did also kill hundreds of white settlers who were innocent, who were also trying to survive.
Yes, and I cannot defend that, and I do have sympathy for their families. I suppose that in some way, both the settlers and the Indians have paid prices for injustices that were created and carried out by men who had little regard for either.
It is always the impoverished who pay for the sins of the powerful.
Yeah, that's probably true much of the time. The point is that we white men had offered hope and help to those desperate souls, and in the end we provided neither. There's that Indian school over in Morris where they force the white man's culture and dress and way of life. Well, those folks are likely to be miserable.
And yet you now live on land that was once owned by the Indians. And you once had Negro servants here.
Yes, and that is true. And we took the land away from the red man, and I was a part of that. But now it is my land, and it is called progress. It is progress. You and I, we march into land that is not ours, and we conquer it, and then we employ it for our own purposes. That is what I am doing here now. As for the servants, well, they came along willingly with Georgie when she moved here. I paid them, and they had all the room and board and food, and they were good workers and kind and loyal. I think they liked it here.
Or so they would have had you believe. Perhaps they were happy. I don't think they would have told you if they weren't. Perhaps they traded their freedom for security. That is an all too human trait.
Yes, perhaps. But regardless, do you know that all men share three qualities that set us apart from all other creatures on this earth? Do you happen to know what those are, Ignatius?
Well, I can think of several things that separate us from the other creatures. We walk upright, for example. Well, with a few exceptions.
Well,
sorry.
Penguins also walk upright, but they are not men, right? And now I cannot walk upright, but I am still a man. No. The three qualities that all men have, that no other creature has, are ambition, intellect, and love.
Do go on.
Well, the first is ambition. The fact that men have ambition shows that they are self-aware. We know where we have been, we know where we are now, and we know that if we apply ourselves and put ourselves to the test, we can become something else in the future if we so desire. And animals do not do that.
That seems a bit cut and dry, but I suppose it's true for the most part.
Yeah. The second one is intellect. Men
and women.
Yes, men and women have intellect. They create beautiful works of art and music that serve no purpose other than pleasure. And on a rare occasion, A man like Shakespeare comes along, who had the great gift of not only understanding the qualities of ambition, intellect, and love, but being able to explain them to others as well.
I will concede all that you have just said if you concede that Francis Bacon was that man.
That discussion can wait for another day. The third quality, though, is love. One thing I agree with St. Paul on is the greatest of these is love. Oh, it's 1,000 feelings and emotions all struggling for mastery.
Says the man who's been still in love with his wife after 20 years of marriage. But it seems as though you have described love without explaining it.
Well, perhaps that is all we can do.
So, ambition, intellect, and love are the foundation, the three legs of a tripod, if you will, that you have built your life on.
You know, I had not thought of it that way, but perhaps you are right. That is very apt.
I will have to think about that too. So, was it ambition that caused you to attack the rebels at Palmito Ranch? I doubt it was intellect. The war was essentially over, so there was no rational reason to do it. And it certainly wasn't love.
I had my reasons.
And you will carry them to your grave?
Perhaps.
All right, Theodore, we'll have to leave this conversation for another time. I still need to explore more of your magnificent home.
Yes, it is. It is a magnificent home. Oh, with Georgie's help, it has certainly become that. Oh, I have often wondered why she consented to be my wife, and, well, now I wonder if she's come to regret it.
None of that talk, Theo. I was wondering, even before your accident, had you still been experiencing your bouts of melancholy?
Yes, I had. There were some days when it was so bad I could not get out of bed, even if I wanted to. And, well, now, even when I want to, I cannot get out of bed.
You seem to be tired, Theo. I will take my leave and I'll come back tomorrow and we can discuss solutions to more of the world's problems.
Yes, I am tired. Until tomorrow, then.
Until tomorrow.
I really must do something to brighten up this room. After nearly 3 weeks, you need something to look at other than these four walls. Some new curtains, perhaps. Definitely some flowers for your nightstand.
Yes, a change of scenery would be most welcome. I'm tempted to have my hands come lift me out of this bed and carry me outside and set me in a chair, just so I could look at my fields or the sky for a while. All I can see out of that window is the horse barn.
You know your doctors say you can't be moved.
Yes, I know, but that doesn't mean I don't want it any less.
Well, we should use our imaginations and memories and think of brighter days. We used to have such fine parties, didn't we, Theo? I especially loved our summer picnics and July 4th parties.
Yes, I did too. Oh, we had to cancel this year's because of my stupid accident.
Oh, we'll have them again when you're more on the mend.
Perhaps.
At the very least, we could have a few people over and play Seven Secrets with us.
That silly parlor game, I've never cared for it, and you know it.
Oh, Theo, don't be so disagreeable. It's a great way to get to know people better.
I know it isn't.
Do you remember the first time we played? The Niemekels, the Schwartouts, and the Wellses were here?
Yes, I do remember that. In addition to that blizzard that was raging outside, that did prove to be an interesting evening.
Curses. In the wind. Always the wind. It never stops. Just an hour ago, there was not a cloud above. I should have paid more attention to the western horizon.
It wouldn't have mattered, dear. It would have been too late to call off the party anyway.
I know. I just wish people had enough sense not to venture out there with this blizzard on its way. Present company accepted, of course. It looks as though we will have our party after all, if it's only the 6 of us.
Blasted weather, it seems to change every 10 minutes. Just earlier today was 40 degrees.
Isaac, I said we should have stayed at home. Well, we're safe now and warm.
Mr. and Mrs. Swartout, let me take your coats.
Is anyone else here?
Yeah, ma'am. Mr. and Mrs. Niemekel and Mr. and Mrs. Wells.
Well, then I see we're not the only fools here.
Isaac! Lois, you made it! How was the trip from Herman?
Theodore, Georgia. Well, when we left an hour or so ago, the wind was blowing, but it wasn't snowing. Then about halfway here, it started coming down, and by the time we were a mile or so away, we could barely see anything. Luckily, our horse knew to keep going straight forward. She's been here often enough, and she knows to keep on the road. That last mile took us 20 minutes.
Well, you're here now, and you're not going anywhere tonight. We have enough accommodations for everyone.
Thank you, dear. You and Theodore are always so hospitable, even when it may not always be warranted.
Have a drink if you like. I have whiskey, gin, vodka, bourbon, as well as soda water to mix with them. In that new beverage called Coca-Cola.
We also have wine.
Yes, and wine.
I could sure use a bourbon and water, Theodore. Thank you.
We also have coffee and hot tea and cocoa, and Ostrid will bring in some food for us later.
Tea's fine for me.
We don't live far from here, so it doesn't take us long to get here. It hadn't started snowing by the time we arrived.
And we left early, in my wife's insistence.
Well, at least one man here has enough sense to listen to a woman.
Yes, dear. But we're here now, so let's enjoy ourselves.
Yes! Let's make the most of the evening. I doubt if anyone else will show up. Well, I see we have 4 couples here. We must play 7 Secrets.
I've never heard that. What is it?
It's a game I learned in Washington. My parents would play it often with their friends. It's quite simple. You need 4 couples. One person, the master, comes up with a list of 6 questions that each person must ask of one another. Then, each person comes up with 1 question that they themselves would like to ask of the other people. Presumably something they have wanted to know for some time. And every person must give a false answer to 4 of the questions and a true answer to 3. The last people to ask questions of each other will be the spouses themselves.
What kinds of questions?
The questions are whatever the master decides, plus your own. If you don't like the question, all you have to do is lie until you run out of lies.
4 lies and 3 truths. So people must lie more than they tell the truth. Why is that?
I didn't make the rules. I suppose it's because people have more secrets to protect than they do to share.
This game sounds interesting. I nominate Theodore to come up with the 6 questions we must ask.
My first question will be, what's your last name?
Theo, no. The questions can't be something that everybody already knows the answer to. Some might, but not everyone, and they have to be substantial, not trivial.
Then I will have to think a while.
Well, I will grab supplies. Yes, of course, of course. Yes. For your secrets. There you go. Yes. And for you too.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, of course.
All right. Here are the questions. Do you think women should have the right to vote? Who is the greatest man who ever lived? What do you consider your greatest achievement? What is the greatest wrong you have committed? What is your greatest fear aside from death? Are you afraid of death?
Those last two questions are quite morbid.
Well, as Georgie said, you can always lie.
Until you run out of lies. What if somebody decides to lie all the time?
My dear madam, this is a game. What's the point of playing a game if you don't abide by the rules?
All right. Everyone, let's find our first partner and then question them and keep going around until only our spouse is left.
Georgia, would you like to be my first partner?
Yes, of course, Mary. Shall we sit over here?
Nemo.
Mr. Wells, you dirty dog.
Now, Georgia, we have the questions we have to ask of each other. Shall we start with those first?
Yes, of course, Mary. All right. Do you think women should have the right to vote?
No.
Okay. Who is the greatest man who ever lived?
Theodore, what is your greatest fear aside from death?
Losing all my land.
Are you afraid of death?
Yes.
All right, now my question. Down in Texas during the war at Palmita Ranch, why did you initiate that battle with the rebels?
I wanted recognition, so I might go on to run for political office one day.
I see. It seemed to be the popular opinion around here, although I've never heard you say it.
My turn now. Isaac, do you think women should have the right to vote?
Yes.
There we are, Mr. Wells. Yes, Mr. Wells.
Well, we are on our last questions. Theo, let's see if after 10 years of marriage, we still have secrets from each other.
It'll be interesting to see how adept you are at lying.
Yes, we'll see. And likewise.
I'm gonna go first. Do you think women should have the right to vote?
Yes.
Who is the greatest man who ever lived?
Why, you are, Theo.
Yeah, I'm sure. What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Learning how to ride a horse.
What is the greatest wrong you have committed?
Causing my father's death.
I know you think that. That was not your fault.
Ask me the next question.
What is your greatest fear?
Being abandoned.
You know that will never happen, my love.
Ask me the next question.
Are you afraid of death?
Yes.
Now my question. After I die, will you remarry?
Theo! Your death is so far away. So far away, in fact, that you shouldn't even be thinking about it. But to answer your question, no, I would not. Now it's my turn. Theo, do you think women should have the right to vote?
Yes.
Who is the greatest man who ever lived?
Abraham Lincoln.
I see. What is your greatest achievement?
Convincing you to be my wife.
If that's true, it did not take much effort. Let's see. What is the greatest wrong you've ever committed?
Being unkind to you so often.
I can't tell if you're being serious or not, but I suppose that's the point of the game. What's your greatest fear, aside from death?
Not leaving enough behind for you and our children when I die.
Enough with your morbid fascination with death, Theo! Oh, but since it's the last question, other than my own, are you afraid of death?
No.
All right. Now it's my turn. Theo, would you like to have more children?
I think 3 is the right number. No.
Well, everyone, let's gather our answers together and compare them. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Ooh. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh.
I can't read Theodore's handwriting.
He'll interpret as necessary. Well, I see that Isaac is afraid of losing everything in a financial panic, or a fire burning down his hotel, or ghosts. And I see that Mary is afraid of prairie fires, or being stranded in a blizzard, or being attacked by Indians. And my goodness, the greatest wrongs people have committed range from not giving enough money at church, to ignoring a plight of orphans, to killing 15 nuns in a convent once. That's a good one, Robert.
It was self-defense.
And I see that my Theo has many candidates for the greatest man who ever lived. Moses, Lincoln, Shakespeare, General Grant, or none of them. And hardly anyone seems to be afraid of death.
And you, Georgia, you seem to admire your husband and your horses equally. I wonder how the horses feel about that.
We'll have the rest of the evening to discuss that, as well as other things. Astrid, will you bring in some food for us, please?
Yeah, of course.
All right, everyone. Refresh your drinks. We have much to chat about.
You see, we did get to know each other better that evening. We stayed up past 2 o'clock talking.
And drinking. Oh, yes, we got to know each other better because we were all stuck in the same house for 3 days until that blizzard died down. Oh, the Welleses nearly cleared me out of my liquor supply. And Swartout was so obsessed with getting back to his hotel to see who had been stranded there, and if they had enough money to pay for it. Oh, the train was stuck in Wilmer, I think, for 3 days as well, until the track was plowed. Well, it took my men and horses most of a day to clear a path wide enough to Herman so the Swardouts and Welleses could get home. And the Neomackles, let's not forget them. They just had to borrow our sleigh and our best horses so that they could make it home cross country. Yes, we did get to know each other better.
Yes, we did. Luckily, we had enough food and refreshments for a larger crowd. That's when we decided we would never have a party in wintertime again.
Yes. Although it did lend itself to some long stretches when we were left to our own devices for entertainment.
It did get lonely at times, but we made it into Herman for the weekly dances when we were in the mood and able to. And I went to church at least once a month.
Well, you went for the both of us. I didn't care too much for those preachers. They were too boring.
Well, we survived. And when we started having our old settlers reunions in the summer, that's something we both look forward to.
Yes, yes. We had our first one 10 years ago. Oh, and then more and more people attended every year, except for that one year when it rained. Oh, it became quite the occasion.
Theo, dear, do you remember that first reunion?
Yes, of course I do. Oh, over 200 people came. Oh, that was a beautiful day.
What a beautiful day. Astrid, how are your preparations coming?
Well, I'd say they're going well, ma'am. The cooks have been up since 5 o'clock, baking and cooking all the meat. They are just now preparing the vegetables. They're going full steam, as you say here in Minnesota.
Good, good. I see you're picking up on our American ways of expressing things.
Why, thank you, ma'am. Your children have helped me. I hope to be able to pass my citizenship test in the fall.
Well, I am sure you will pass with flying colors, as we say here. And a happy 4th of July to you, too.
And to you, too.
It seemed fitting to have a gathering of the people the General and I have gotten to know over the past few years. And for him, that time goes back even farther.
Yeah, it will be good to see some of my countrymen. I have heard people are coming from as far as Barrett.
And perhaps even farther. The General got to know some of the people in the area when he was platting it, and the good people of Barrett agreed to name their new little town after him just a couple of years ago. He's quite pleased, although he would never admit it.
Yeah. You know, I have a cousin who lives on a farm outside of the town. It would be good to see her if she comes.
Oh, it's almost 10. Our first guest will be arriving any minute now, and we'll be bringing out food before too long. I expect most of the 50 or so people we invited will attend, and we've asked them to invite their friends too, so I'm not sure how many people will be here. Herman is having their own 4th of July celebration too, you know.
True.
I just hope we have enough food for everyone. We've been preparing this for the past 2 weeks.
I am sure we will. Beef, pork, chicken, lamb, turkey, venison, and prairie chickens. The cooks are using out 22 burners, and the ovens all have something in them too.
And lettuce and tomatoes and radishes and the potatoes from the garden and the fresh fruit that arrived just yesterday from St. Paul. We have iced tea and lemonade and grape juice and apple cider for the women and children and teetotalers, if any of them show. And we'll have wine for the women who drink it, and beer and liquor for the men. And we'll have games for everyone to play, and boats to sail in, and horse races. It is going to be a grand party.
It will be.
Oh, here comes the General. Theo, how are your preparations coming along?
Going well, Georgie. The croquet field has been set up, the baseball outfield has been mowed, and fresh dirt has been put in the infield as well as a racetrack. The new paint on the outbuildings is dry, and the beer kegs are keeping cool in the ice house, and some of the hands insist it is their duty to keep sampling it to see that it remains the right temperature. Suddenly, everyone is in a helpful mood.
I was just telling Astrid how grand this party will be.
Yes, and I hope that the catnip oil one of my men made to keep the mosquitoes at bay will make it even more enjoyable.
Yes, I do too. Oh, Bob, Dickie, where is your sister?
She's with the servants.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Bob. Well, they must be doing a good job of occupying her. Even at her young age, she seems to be everywhere at once, yet can never stay in one spot for too long.
Yeah, she's always trying to tag along with me and Dickie. Are there going to be a lot of kids here today?
Yes, boys. I bet enough for you to get a baseball game going.
Oh boy, come on, Bob. Let's go get the ball and bat.
That must be the sword arts. and the knee knuckles. Hello, welcome. It's so nice to see you, Lois. Oh my goodness, a pleasure, and you brought some...
Theodore, old man, how goes the battle?
It goes well, Bill. And you?
You know, we could really use some rain. Not only for the crops, but to keep the grasshoppers at bay. My crops are doing very well, and yours too.
Yes, but not as well as last time this time. Now only if we can get a decent price for our grain.
That always is a challenge for you farmers, isn't it?
Now that the railroad fees are more reasonable. Thanks to you, Theodore.
Yes, that was a challenge. I have a strange relationship with that J.J. Hill fellow. As a wealthy railroad baron, he epitomizes everything I despise about the elite class. Yet, he and I still have a cordial relationship. He even stays with us on occasion when he goes hunting out here.
Those men, always talking about business and farming.
Oh, let them talk. It'll be nice for me to be around other people, other women for a change.
Yes, this is a party. I have some dresses I bought from my latest trip back east. We must try them all on and have a fashion show. Let us women make a pact to only talk of beautiful days and beautiful children and the games we will all be playing and the wonderful food that we will be sharing.
Yes, I brought 2 angel food cakes.
And I brought 4 dozen oatmeal cookies.
And I brought a pie, an apple pie.
Well, thank you all. Astrid, when you get a chance, will you bring these inside so the flies don't get to them?
Of course.
I know some of you men know some of the others, but I don't think everyone here knows everyone else except me. Let me introduce everyone. Isaac Swarta, who owns the Pullman Hotel in Herman. With Albert Anderson next. From Barrett, he owns the cafe there. Bill Niemackel, who farms just a couple of miles from here. And John Wild from Hoffman, who I buy lumber from on occasion.
That was a bountiful spread, Theodore. You really outdone yourself.
I had little to do with it, Bill. That's Georgia's purview.
And your cooks and servants, all me and my wife have is a cleaning lady who comes once a week.
Let's just say that my ranch provides employment for many folks and contributes to the local economy. And I benefit as well.
Spoken like a true Republican.
Don't count out Hoffman, fellas. We're trying to make a thriving community there. We are hard workers, we value education, and we understand the importance of cooperating with our neighbors for the betterments of all. We have all the makings of a prosperous town.
I thought the Swedes and Norwegians didn't care much for each other.
Well, that was in the old country. Here in America, it's not quite that way. I suspect that Norway's going to separate itself from Sweden soon, and they will leave each other in peace. And at any rate, we're all brothers in a way because we both hate the Danes. How about Herman? What's going on there?
We're a little bit more cosmopolitan here in Herman. We have Swedes and Norwegians, of course. We've got Dutch and Germans and English and Irish folks like our host here.
Barrett's doing pretty well. We have quite a lot of, well, we have a growing community as well, as it is pretty new.
You got that lake over there too, right?
Yeah, we have that lake off of you.
Well, you may have your little lake, but Herman is a commercial center of the county. We might not be the county seat anymore, but if we keep growing, we might become the county seat again. Is there anyone from Elbow Lake here?
I don't think so. They don't seem to care much for us Hermanites.
Likewise.
Any folks people recognize?
Yeah. Where's Oliver Hawkins from Ashby? He has a hotel that rivals mine. I wonder if he'll be staying here tonight.
I have invited him to stay tonight with us if he likes. My house has as many rooms as your hotel does. There's Griswold from Norcross. I think he still resents the fact that they didn't name their town after him. And there's Kiddo Olson from Wendell. And Harold Thorson from Erdall.
And there are the Harstads and the Kluses, who live just outside Donnelly. Man, Theodore, you have a wide side of friends here today.
Not that many friends, but many acquaintances, Bill. After all, I have traveled around this area extensively, not only surveying, but also buying animals and lumber and supplies and farm implements. And people come to me to buy things.
As you say, you do contribute to the local economy.
Well, it looks like your little gathering here has attracted at least one fan.
Yes.
That raggedy man over there.
Yes, he does seem down on his luck.
He's coming this way, too.
I suspected some vagrants might show up when they heard about the free food.
Would you be General Barrett, sir?
Yes, I am. How can I help you?
Well, I just hopped off the train from Wilmer. I come up this way looking for work. I was sitting in the boxcar looking over the land when I saw a crowd of people, and I saw your farmland and all your buildings. And I figured the owner of such a farm might be looking for some help now with the harvest season coming up. So I hopped off and started talking to some folks, and they told me you're the man to talk to.
Well, I'm always looking for good workers. What's your name?
Tooth, sir. Tooth Ingerbrecht.
Tooth? Is that a Norwegian name?
No, it's my nickname. As you can see, I have only one tooth. I lost all the rest. Some in accidents, some in fights with my 5 brothers, and some just rotted away.
My good man, how do you eat?
Well, I eat soups and applesauce and oatmeal and such. I get by.
Well, Tooth, what kind of work can you do?
Well, I can do anything. I can milk cows, I can shock wheat, I can scythe hay, I can shoe horses, and I can plow fields in the spring and shovel snow in the winter. I can do carpentry and masonry work. I can even cook. You've heard of a jack of all trades? I call myself the tooth of all trades.
Despite your appearance, you seem healthy enough, if maybe a little worn down. You are right about the harvest season approaching. It looks as though I tend to lose my help this time of year. I will give you a chance, Mr. Ingerbrecht. If you do well, you will be rewarded for it. If not, well, there are always a couple of trains that pass by every day that can help you on your way.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. You won't be disappointed. When can I start?
You can start tomorrow. Today, no one is working. As you can tell, we're having a party. Go help yourself to some food, whatever it is you can eat, and some drink as well. Enjoy yourself, my good man.
I'll do that, sir. Thanks again.
Theodore, I'll wager you $5 after that man eats and drinks his fill, you'll never see him again.
I'll take you up on that, Isaac.
Sorry, fellas. Foul ball.
You have to give him credit for being resourceful. We'll see how it works out. If it doesn't, all I've lost is a few glasses of beer.
Well.
Whoa!
Sorry,
Jesus. Out of my hand. Say, Chester, you think that's close enough for a point? No, I suppose not.
Are you okay?
Jeez.
Yeah,
Man, for not participating in the levity, we do certainly seem to be in the middle of everybody's entertainment.
Theo, we have come to rescue you men from your dull talk. There is always time to talk, but there isn't always time to dance. Now is that time come.
That was a grand party. Everyone had so much fun. Our house was filled with overnight guests, and we continued on into the next day with those who stayed. And Tooth has been with us for 10 years now.
He has more than exceeded my expectations.
Oh, I still remember that after he was with us for 3 weeks, you afforded him enough wages so that he could get some false teeth. I've never seen a man so happy just eating a piece of chicken.
He turned out to be a hard worker and loyal. He not only repaid me for those teeth, he worked an extra week with no wages just to show his gratitude. Oh, he's one of the best men that I have. I enjoyed that party too. There was so much good food and conversation and reminiscing. Every year it got better and better. Well, until this year.
Oh, we'll have another reunion again next year, Theo. Even better than before.
Perhaps, but I won't be here to see it.
Theo!
It's time to stop fooling ourselves, Georgie. Or more appropriately, it's time for you to stop fooling yourself. I don't think we will have many more visits. The doctor has been here every day since my accident, and he pumps more and more morphine into my veins, and yet it relieves me less and less. Lately, every day has become more of a struggle. I know that he has talked to you about that more than me, so you know the outcome as well as I. But we must begin to prepare for my death and to get my affairs in order.
Theo, our affairs have been in order since the day we married. You have seen to that. Yes, the doctor has been talking to me and to Bob and Dickie as well. I keep hoping the next day will bring better news. But after nearly 3 weeks, it hasn't come. Forgive me, Theo. I don't expect any good news anymore.
Then we should be preparing to say our final goodbyes.
Theo, stop it! Stop it! Stop it! You've always been so melodramatic, speaking in grandiose terms about love and responsibility and honor and trust, and anything else that came to your mind that seemed worthy of moral elevation. Why, you'd praise a mouse in the highest of terms if you thought it was providing for its family, and then the next day all would be black. You'd find me disagreeable, our neighbors idiots, our children insufferable, and the hired hands lazy. If you had let your foreman properly watch over his crew, you wouldn't have gone off riding your horse like a madman just to give them a tongue lashing. And then General Grant wouldn't have stepped in that badger hole going full tilt, and you'd be fine, and everything would be fine, and...
Georgie, my darling.
Oh, Theo, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to hurt you. I've never meant to hurt you. These past 3 weeks have been almost unbearable for me. At first I prayed you'd walk again. And then when it became clear that you wouldn't, I prayed that you'd be well again, even if you couldn't walk. Then we can continue our lives as before.
I prayed for that as well, although I would think God would listen to you more closely.
It doesn't seem so. Now I think I'm all out of prayers. Theo, my final prayer for you will be that your last breath will be peaceful and pain-free.
I wish for the same.
Dr. Olson says all he can do now is make you suffer less until you suffer no more. Theo, for reasons I have never understood, you've always had a sense of dread, like you've been preparing for this day your whole life, preparing me for this day, long before it ever came. I just wish you could have been more happy. It's almost as though you thought you didn't deserve to be happy. I tried to show you that you did.
Georgie, you have always been very good to me, even when I have been thoughtless and jealous and cruel. You have been generous where I have been miserly, and forgiving and loving where I have been thoughtless and cruel and exacting and spiteful. You came down from heaven like a spark and lit a fire in me, and I've never thought I could burn so brightly or accomplish so much.
There you go, being grandiose again. But I believe you. As for me, I never thought I could be so happy. You brought out dreams that were always inside me, sometimes dreams I never even knew I had.
Well, whatever dreams you once had, you gave them up for me, or you changed them to mine. You left that beautiful capital city with all of its life and people and culture for a lonely existence on this flat, vast, windy prairie of nothingness just to be with me. And that is the greatest accomplishment of my life.
Theo, I was eager to come. I gave that past life up willingly and happily.
You have a great heart, Georgie, and love is the great passion that great heart fed.
My heart did not deceive me. Do you remember when we began courting? I used to love getting your letters and loved writing to you. We got to know each other and love each other through our letters. I've kept every one you wrote.
And I yours. Oh, Georgie, you know how much I love to walk. Whether it was when I was out surveying or exploring every acre of this farm, or that time that I was wandering around half of Stearns County looking for oxen.
Yes, you told me about that adventure in one of your letters.
And then after we married and you moved here, our cadence became the same. Now I hope that my lack of cadence doesn't become yours. I have always told you that it is we two against the world. And if the world shall be against us, if we stuck together, then what harm could come? Well, now it has come. And it seems as though fate has now woven you into this dastardly thing that it has woven for me.
It seems that you've believed more in fate than in God.
Well, I would like to believe that God didn't give me malaria as a child, or kill my favorite horse and leave me a cripple in the process. That would be a cruel God indeed. But you're right. I have dwelt on myself too much, and too often I did not like what I see. You saw in me things that I didn't see in myself, and that is what you have loved. To me, life is like a battle of contradictions. But sometimes those contradictions can come together to create a new creation, a greater good. Like sun and rain come together and form a rainbow.
Always the poet. That's one of the things I've always loved about you. That reminds me. I've been reading these letters a lot these past few days to lift my spirits. This is one of my favorites. Dear Georgie, do you ever get tired of being told so often that I love you? I know you do not, and so again and again I tell you. Theo, will you read it to me?
You are the May morning and the May twilight. You are my dreams and my hopes. You are to me the queen among women. When I am in your presence, I am bathed in a flood of joy that uplifts my dark moods. Even the black clouds are tinged with silver by your sunlight, but even if blue skies are beautiful, without the clouds, they too would become monotonous in their never-changing beauty. We need both clouds and sunlight. Along with the earth, they give us life. The ominous clouds, the dark storms, when they burst, they shatter the sameness of unbrokenness, and they create the glory of a living rainbow following the rain. It is better than the blue sky. And in the evening time, when the half-shadows come back, it is a new shade added to earth. And after every time the blackness of night descends, the morning brings a new burst of colors in life. It is a new evidence of beauty and of rebirth. So, dear Georgia, when my days of gloom have overshadowed me, this promise of new life brings me back to you in an ever-changing kaleidoscope of happiness. I am the air and the clouds and the earth, and you, my queen woman, are the sun. Kiss me, my darling, kiss me, my heart's darling.
Theo, as I said, I always enjoyed reading your letters, but I must admit that sometimes they troubled me.
Well, I often wrote that to show that we are contradictions of one another and how much we might risk by being together. I am spiteful and cruel and too often jealous, and I'm always worrying about this or that until I drive myself to melancholy. But you are loving and giving and carefree, and You're cheerful and happy, and you bring joy into every room that you enter. You are always thinking of others first.
What you say is only partly true. The real contradiction is within you. Theo, when you are kind, you are the kindest man in the world. And when you are happy, you never tired of expressing your love for me. And your generosity knows no bounds. You donated that beautiful bell to the Herman School and the land for the Lakeside Cemetery. And the donation to Methodist Church so they can make it larger. When your renters couldn't make their payments because of poor crops, you let them make it up the next year. At heart, you are a man of passion and kindness and love, and that has driven your life. The darkness inside you is just a shadow cast by your great light.
Well, that shadow, as you call it, it also serves as a home to anger and sometimes to resentment. There is something to be said for that.
Yes, I've seen you angry, but in the end it has come to no good. Is it not anger that drove you out to castigate your men? And we've seen what came of that. But revenge? I've never known you to be a vengeful man.
You haven't known me all of my life.
No, but I feel as though I have. When we first met in Cape May, I thought to myself, I know that man. And ever since then, I have always felt that way.
Georgie, you have a good heart, and over the years you have come to know me better than anyone else, and there are many things that I have trusted to show only to you.
Yes, I know. Not only that you can be a dark man, but that you can also be a hopeless romantic.
Some might call it being maudlin.
Nevertheless, it's one of the things I've loved most about you. Whenever you have been cold and distant, I read and reread one of my favorite letters. Here it is. If we really fall in love and thereafter love 100 years, it would be too short to comprehend it all. I love you with a great love. I love you with my heart and soul. I love you with brain and body. I love to be with you when you're present and to think of you when you're absent. I love you joyfully and enthusiastically. I admit I first fell in love with you. When I first fell in love with you, I loved you with hesitation and with some misgivings as to the future because of my own nature, not yours. It is because ingrained in my nature there has been stamped so much to make me unhappy. I did not want to make you unhappy as well. But after you declared your love for me, I struggled against all the dark shadows as I had never done before. I endeavored to bask only in the light of your great love. You are my lover and my keeper. You revived me after I nearly drowned. Oh, Georgie, you rescued me from the dark abyss. Theo, whenever I read that, I am renewed. I realize that I had to be strong for you, and that in turn made me strong for myself, and now for our children. I don't think I ever would have found that strength had I married a man who never doubted himself. It's that strength that allows me, forces me to accept that you'll soon be gone, and I must live on.
Georgie, you have always been my rock.
And you have always been my diamond, Theo.
Georgie, I will make you a promise.
What is that?
When I cross the border into heaven, the very first thing I will do is set about surveying it in order to find a good place for us to share when you join me there.
I'm sure you will.
Get the elevation right. Get that off of your shoulder. I can't get a proper elevation with you sitting there doing it incorrectly. Get it right. Do it now.
I fear his time is soon. I've given him all the morphine that I dare, but now it just makes him delirious. I doubt if he even knows we're here.
Just yesterday, we had a long talk. Even though he was in pain, he was speaking rationally. And now, it's my last prayer's gone unanswered.
What is that boy doing here?
Fritz, it's all right. You can come in. He's been here nearly every day for the past 3 weeks. I don't know what he and the general talk about, but the general always seems to be in a better mood afterwards.
He's scaring me, ma'am. Never seen him act like this before.
Yes, Fritz, he's not himself. He keeps thinking he's somewhere else. I don't think he'll be with us much longer.
This short life, life's a fitful giver of hope and love. What is love? Is it eternal? Is it like a spark, a flame? What is the love? Is love all? Is the end? The end is love.
My lord, he is quoting letters he wrote me over 20 years ago.
Branson! Get the cavalry to the front! Ford is coming!
Now he's reliving his battle at Palomino Ranch.
Let's hope it turns out better for him this time.
We must attack! 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 Wait, are you questioning my orders, Branson? No, we will attack! That is what General Grant would do. We must capture them and catch them by surprise. I will be damned if I surrender to a rebel. No, no! They killed my president! They have killed my president, and I will have my revenge. I will have my revenge. They've killed my president. I will have my revenge. I will have my revenge. Georgie. Georgie.
It seemed to be this last thoughts review, Miss Barrett.
Oh, Theo, my love, my only love. He is at peace now. Theo, you can begin your surveying now.
Can you read another letter, Mother?
Yes, I think there's time. Sauk Center, May 8th, 1879. Dear Georgie, you must excuse this short note because I must be off to the country. I will not be back to Herman until Sunday or Monday. I have received no letter from you since I left home 8 days ago. So you see, I'm a little bit blue, but I know it will all go away when I can see you and love you face to face.
I wrote this while the horses are being harnessed just to tell you that I am counting the days when the time will come for me to come to you and ask you to share with our life and love and hope, and to let me have a chance in your joys and your sorrows. Be cheerful and happy. If we two are for each other, who shall be against us? I love you with a great love. I love you with my heart and soul. I love you with brain and nerves and heart. I love to be with you when present and to think of you when absent. I love you faithfully and enthusiastically. I love you now with some misgivings as to the future because of reasons which I have often talked to you about. It is because ingrained in my nature, these have been stamped.
So much to make me unhappy. But I will struggle against all the dark shadows, and I will endeavor to bask only in the sunlight of your great love. You shall be my lover, yes, and you shall be my keeper. You shall revive me. Oh, Georgie, do not let me go down into the dark abyss. Do not drive me from your love, though I am at times so harsh. I love you with a great love.
I shall let you kiss me with those lips which have never spoken to me in anger, instead with their encouragement and pure love. Georgie, dear, God bless you and send you every happiness. I wish I had time for 2 sheets for my letter instead of 1. If I had time, I would write this all down. But as I have not, I will send it all full of love, love, love. Kiss me, kiss me. I am impatient for the train to come.
Dear daughter, that is the train that will take you and me and your father's body to Sterling, where we will bury him. It will be our final goodbye. After that, we'll see what the future holds for us.